I'm Jill Griffin, and this is the Career Refresh Podcast. I'm a former media and marketing executive turned career strategist and strengths coach. I spent my career working my way up and through the ranks of global organizations and startups. And today, I show others how to do the same. Join me each week as we discuss the strategies to leverage your strengths, increase your confidence and visibility, and reset your career with actionable steps towards a finer future. Ready? Let's do it. Hey, my friends, welcome back to this week's podcast. Okay, this week I am sharing an interview between Vicki Bradley and myself. Vicki is the founder and CEO of Women in Leadership, which is a leadership training program for women everywhere. We talk about everything. We talk about workplace trauma and how to get through being fired. In that case, that's me, how I worked through being fired and how I found career joy again. So give a listen and let us know what you think. Either email me, I'll include that in the show notes at hello@jillgriffincoaching.com, or reach out on Instagram and we can chat there too. All right, give a listen and I'll see you on the other side.
Jill Griffin has joined us today. She is an executive coach. She's a speaker, and I love this part. She is a BS buster. And, we can all put our thought into what BS might be, but it's actually your belief systems. So we're excited to learn about busting those belief systems. She is recognized by Advertising Age as one of the top 25 women to watch. She was also named one of the 50 most influential people in content marketing by NewsCred. She's also the two-time winner of Media Week's Media Planner of the Year. And she has spent about 20 years coaching and building company cultures. Jill also had a traumatic time in her life with a brain injury. And so today we're going to be talking about, how do you rethink, how do you reset, reboot your life and career? Well, let's jump in because I know everybody's excited and our time is always precious, and we have lots to cover off. So let's just share a little bit about your background so that people have an understanding of, the marketing background you came from, the brain trauma, and then how you became this, awesome coach.
Great. Yeah. So I actually started my career at Atlantic Records and started working in marketing, being in strategy, eventually moving into advertising, and then working on some of the world's most well-known brands, things like Coca-Cola, Samsung, Microsoft. But what was happening is just as my career trajectory was taking off, I had a head injury, traumatic brain injury is what it would be classified as. I was hiking in Australia. I took a solo trip to Australia to go hiking and I fell. And it resulted in me taking a tumble down a small waterfall, but still a waterfall. So some other hikers helped me. And the interesting thing about brain injury is they're insidious. And it took about a good 6 months for the full impact of what had happened to really set in. So it was the discovery that continued to unveil itself over the months post the concussion and then the brain injury. And really at that point, what was also happening is my career, I'm doing better. I'm, getting into more and more opportunities and more leadership positions. But because of the cognitive impairment, I wasn't able to tell what was my own ego and my own nonsense, what was potentially a toxic situation or a tough work environment. There's the velocity of business that's natural in any environment. And what's just sort of natural, it's work, not a hobby. What's just sort of natural that happens in work. And I couldn't really discern what was what. And I just got to a point that I was like, I'm out, meaning I have to figure this out. It is a non-negotiable. So what I ended up doing was I started to put connections together that food and environment were making my symptoms better or worse. So I started to study the brain health. I became a functional nutrition educator. I became a health coach. I started doing that work and doing it through the lens of food and environment, which is what helped me learn about the brain, and then learning cognitive behavioral therapy, positive psychology. And starting to then implement it and see that I was making changes and starting to be able to perform better. And then I just brought it back into my day job because I was doing all of that while I still maintained the day job. And in a very short period of time, my performance and the rewards and the promotions started coming. My team was doing better. Everyone was like, what is going on? And, many leadership or supervisor would be like, 2 for the price of 1. You're a marketing strategist and a coach, like go on doing it. Right. So that's really what got me into doing this. And then about 5 years ago, so I've been a coach for 18 years, but about 5 years ago, I left corporate with grace and excellence and went out on my own. And I've been doing career strategy and executive coaching for the last 5 years full time.
Nice. Well, first of all, let's just go backwards a little bit there. Okay, first of all, solo trip to Australia. Thank the Lord, someone saw you, found you when you had, that is incredible that happened. And, that tenacity that you have to, go out and conquer the world, like you're demonstrating that in multiple ways, which is beautiful to see. Yeah. So, I'm glad to see that you're thriving and, you've got this great practice and you're still implementing what you were doing. You're just helping others learn how to do that, which is amazing. So just to tap in for a few minutes, if you don't mind, when you talk about the brain health and understanding the brain more, what were maybe 1 or 2 of the things that were most pivotal for you to help you start to, recognize like where you were and where you wanted to get to?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I would say the first thing that I had to figure out was what was in my control and what was out of my control. So what was in my control is what I put in my body, and understanding that there are foods and things that might be totally healthy and fine for you. But for me, they would put me into brain fog. They would put my motor skills really sloppy. I would often represent as if I was drunk. Meanwhile, I don't drink, right? Lighting, stairwells, anything in my peripheral vision. If I'm in a workstation that happens to be facing a pathway with lots of movement, I would stand up and tip over, right? Oh, wow. So there was a constant, how invisible disability is not really talked about. And invisible disability is anything that's going to impair your everyday ability to take on regular actions. And it's anything from brain injuries and dizziness to asthma, MS, ulcerative colitis. Anything that's going to impair. And things are very different today, and we're getting more and more awareness. But when this first happened to me 18 years ago, there was no invisible disability section of the employee workbook. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just figuring it out on your own. So the part that I could control was what I could put in my environment. And then also there was parts that I couldn't control. There's many things about the environment that I couldn't control. So does it mean that, if we get into a little bit about the firing that I had, a lot of that had to do with how I couldn't perform in an environment that was being interpreted as me not being a team player. Because I couldn't. So, and just really getting understanding of what I can and can't do. So that, and knowing your non-negotiables, like it is a non-negotiable for me to go to a place that has blinking lights and alcohol. It's just not going to work.
Yeah. Wow. So many things you shared there. And I do want to jump into, the trauma of getting fired in just a second, but even, think back 18 years ago as an employer, I'm sure that some of your colleagues were even looking at you going, what is wrong with her? Like, is she on drugs? I can
only imagine 100%. They must have been like, she's so weird because I didn't tell anybody, right? Yeah. I didn't want it to impact my opportunity. And I just hid it. My friends and family knew, but I wasn't talking about it. So I got to this level of constantly compartmentalizing my life, which is really living a lie, which is exhausting.
I felt
that if you knew, then you would be like, you'd want to take care and be like, oh, well, maybe Jill shouldn't do that. Meanwhile, I'd be like, no, let me decide. And again, doesn't mean any of this was true. This is my thought process based on, direct and indirect signaling that I would receive within our culture.
Yeah. Wow. And that is such a critical comment that you made, like, because we do create those stories ourselves, right? And we think that other people are thinking these things. Meanwhile, most of the time they don't have a clue as to what's going on, but we're fueling ourselves with that, which can manifest physical ailments. And, the good thing is you didn't allow that to define you. So let's jump into and talk about like what happened, when you got fired, and then how did you find that joy again with a career?
Yeah. So the trauma was legit. Getting fired, at least, I live in the US and most of us, our healthcare is employer sponsored. So I have a brain injury. I have a traumatic brain injury. If I don't have healthcare, I don't get better. So losing my job meant you're actually taking away my ability to get help and get the healthcare that I need. So that trauma first was the initial blow of like, what am I going to do? Right. So that was part one. And then part two is I needed support. Like, as I said, I got my face coached off. And it's really what helped me come into one of the reasons why I do what I do today is helping people work within the environment in situations that sometimes are absolutely untenable, but we still get to choose how we want to work within an environment. And other times our brain's being a total jerk. And we have to question and like, is this true? A friend of mine always says, it's like you're a toddler with a knife, right? You're like, your brain is sort of doing it to yourself. Like, is this really true? And is this how I want to think about things? So that, just to sort of set the stage there. And then the other thing that I did in order to deal with the trauma of being fired is I had to decide how were they right? Right? Because I needed to free myself and not be the victim. Because if I make them right, now I can acknowledge that, okay, that's, we're in agreement and I now take my power back because victims don't recover. If you stay in that victim mentality, you're not going to move on. So I had to find the way to free myself. And this meant that when I was told that I didn't participate in after work activities with clients that would often be like drinking and shots and things like that, they're right. I didn't participate, but I didn't tell them. Well, that's totally not true. Some people knew, some people didn't, right? When one of the leaders insisted on constantly having client meetings on her yacht and I couldn't go on her yacht and told her why, she was like, I think you can. I think you're making this up. Right. I haven't been on a boat in 18 years. That's not a car-based ferry because I can't be on a boat. That type of rocking just doesn't like the impact is at the moment. It can be days or weeks after that. I'm still lost my motor skills because of the vestibular issue. So I could make her the villain, or I can just say from what her unconscious understanding was. And yes, she heard the words that I had a brain injury and a vestibular impairment, but she didn't really know. So I wasn't participating. I wasn't able to. And, I think it's funny because I remember she said to me that I was strategic, successful, and fabulous, but today is going to be my last day. And I was like, you don't want people who are strategic and successful and fabulous on your team? And she was like, we're done. And then she laughed. And I was like, okay. Right. So that was like really like, wow. And like, again, do I want to be in a position in which I'm a victim, or do I want to say, okay, how am I going to approach this? How am I going to think about this differently?
Wow. Good for you. I mean, that's huge because okay, I get what you're saying. And that was incredible awareness that you had about being the victim or a villain, or, do you want to let somebody else take your power from you, or do you want to stand in that power? But even from her perspective, like she can't see it because looking at you, you look great, right? Nobody would ever know that there was anything wrong with you. So that's in itself is difficult, right? Because they can't see it. Only you are experiencing it.
Yeah.
Wow. And good for you for overcoming that and recognizing like, what's the go forward? Because
the go forward was there's no more shame. There's no more hiding. Like I was probably a heat seeking missile of resentment because I kept wanting to be back pre-injury.
Yes.
And that is not a possibility because I literally broke stuff within my ear canals, right? Like I can't fix that. And constantly saying to myself, okay, I'm going to believe in myself and I know what I'm really good at, and knowing my own strengths and how am I going to lean into that? And that's really where I started to get my joy back. Like it can be true that I can't go on a yacht and I can't therefore enjoy the camaraderie and the bonding and the collaboration between the company and clients. And that's true, but it doesn't mean that everything then like we go to all or nothing thinking, and really teaching myself that like, this is one moment in time. And in a couple of years from now, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
Maybe in a week from now, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. That's wonderful. And so to your point though, the mind is very powerful, right? So how did you develop those mindset practices that, help you to deal with your disability and how people started to see you, but your career and just your overall life?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So I devoured everything that I could, like, that came into my vision, meaning, so my insatiable curiosity, reading about other successful people, and then also other people who had challenges, whether visible or invisible, and starting to put together the threads of what, the circumstances are all different, but starting to put through some of the threads in which I was taking away. And a lot, baby, it came down to that your thought becomes your reality. So, I joke with my clients all the time and say, be ridiculous, be outrageous, because it becomes your reality, right?
Yeah,
I can live in your reality, or I can live in my reality. And so just to take that from like sort of the esoteric into the real, I can open social media first thing in the morning, and now that becomes my reality. So whatever tension or whatever is going on in everybody else's mindset, now I've decided to borrow, and now I'm in that. Or I can choose to not do that, right? And therefore I have another reality. I mean, it's something as simple as that, as being really clear in what I'm putting in my body, whether it's mental or physical. And that went to like the content that I consume. And, I made my career as a content creator. So I was a ferocious consumer of content. So what's the content I'm putting in my body? How am I thinking about this? Really starting every day with a prayer and meditation practice. I then also do possibility work. I really think about what's possible for today. And then I go to the experience of if the possibility is realized. It is the day after the possibility. What, like as I say, like, New Year's Eve is coming. There's nothing you need to do to make New Year's Eve come. You just get to decide. Are you celebrating? Are you dressing? Are you going out? Are you coming in? That's the way I think about possibility. This thing is possible. I will get past this. So how do I want to do it in the meantime? And I let that feeling, I use feelings as fuel. I let that rev up in my body. And then since my thoughts become things, if I'm taking action from joy and inspiration and determination and focus, guess what I'm going to create?
Absolutely.
Right? Versus if I'm taking action from fear and grasping and urgency and like, I have to get out of this position, guess what I'm going to create? And that's really what this journey has been, is understanding that like, this is a billion-dollar machine and I'm going to protect it as much as possible.
Wow. You said so many things there. Wow. First of all, we're cut from the same cord. Okay. I'll just tell you that.
I love hearing that.
I'm the same. It's like, if you believe it, you'll achieve it. Right.
Yep.
And it's that knowing it fully in your soul that the possibility is there. So I love that. What I'd like us to take just a second and talk about, if it's okay, is when someone struggles to get there. Because so often, I mean, you and I both coach on this. So often people struggle to see that possibility. What are maybe two things that you do for yourself to really help someone move from that place of impossible to possible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a really great question and very needed. I try to find the neutralized thought. Like I always say, I can't take you from first to fifth gear. I'll blow the clutch. I have to pass you through neutral. So if you're in a place where, oh my God, this is what's happened, and a place that's like, oh my God, this is never going to happen. What's the thought in between? Or maybe there's a few thoughts in between. This idea of like, all right, it's possible it could happen. I'm willing to believe it's possible. I'm open to seeing that it's possible, right? And you just start like wiggling off the two thoughts a little bit and finding something in the center is one of the things that I use regularly. And then also, if anyone's familiar with Byron Katie's work, I love her questions. Is it true?
Yeah, I do too.
Can I prove it true? And usually by the time I say, can I prove it? It's done because it feels true, but you can't prove it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Yeah. I love her work. It's beautiful. The other one you made me think about when you were speaking there, and I don't know if you've read this yet, but Dr. Joe Dispenza's Supernatural. Have you?
Yes. Yeah. It's been a while, but it's come up a few times. So it means I need to refresh reading that book again.
Yeah. It's like so powerful because it's really what, it sounds like what you're embodying. It's what I'm embodying as well about, the possibility and shifting that energy from a place of can't to can and really believing what's possible. But great book. I love that one. Awesome. So what do you feel like have been maybe the most important lessons in your life? You were this amazing career person, had this awesome, work that you were doing. And then now you have this invisible disability. What have you learned through that?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think the first thing I would say that I've learned is like, there are no geographical solutions. So I think it's going to be better when I get there, or if we think maybe I should just move to a different city. Or what I hear a lot, talking with a client yesterday who was saying like, I just feel if I could get the new job, if I get the new job, I'll get like my motivation back and I'll feel better. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. I mean, Jon Kabat-Zinn wrote the book, Wherever You Are, There You Are, right? Like you're bringing yourself with you. So the biggest thing for me has always been like, I got to clean this up first. And again, if you are in a situation where it's threatening or abusive, we're not talking about that, but we're talking about thinking within the general malaise of work and life and career when we want so urgently to do something. There are no geographical solutions, and really find a way to clean that up. And the second thing that I've learned is that if I'm coming from urgency and I'm not running from a burning building, then it's fear talking. So really checking myself and being like, is this really urgent? Do I have to really send this email right now? Do I have to get this done right now? Or is there some fear behind that? And then just, again, becoming the examiner of my thinking and like, what is really going on here? And then I think some level of acceptance, like stuff is going to happen. And like, why not me? Right? Like, I would say the first 2 or so years post the injury, there was a lot of why me, because I'm a young woman living in New York City who now can't go out to bars and not be impacted. Like I would go out, but then I'd be the weird girl in the corner, literally holding the bar because of the lighting, the music, the noise. I'm in like a vestibular nightmare and I'm trying to hold on. I'm like, oh, sure, I look dateable, right? Like, oh, let me get her number, right? So just having like a level of compassion for myself. Like I did the best I could at that time. And then I was just like, I can't, if it's in me, it's for me, it's going to happen. It just may not be right now. So understanding that level of compassion and like, there has to be a level of acceptance like this. There's going to be a new normal. And, I've said this before, but my brain injury was the greatest gift I could have ever, like, I didn't ask for it, but it was the greatest gift I ever got because of so many gifts that have come from it. And a level of awareness that would not have been there had I not had it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. I think that's such an important aspect, right? Because it opened your mind up to so many other things. And because you're tenacious, you've got to find like, how do I not survive, but how do I thrive? Yeah. I mean, this has happened. Like I'm living with this now. Yeah. So what do I do with it? Yeah. Because that becomes the choice, right? Yeah. You can become the victim.
If today is a day where you're only surviving, that's okay because it's not permanent. Exactly. Nothing is permanent. So it will shift at some point.
Nice. I love it. So how do you feel, or what have you done really to create that balance between the work and life and being able to live with your injury so that you can thrive and survive?
Yeah. Well, I call it my 3 C's, right? Which is clarity, certainty, and confidence. So the first is like, I have to get real clarity on what are my non-negotiables. What are the yeses, the nos, and the maybes? Like, you need a criteria for your maybe. And that's everything from, for so many years, I would give what I viewed as my best to what I did from Monday through Friday at work. And then by Friday, I would basically spend half the weekend in bed because I'd be so exhausted or, cognitively and vestibularly messed up, so that the people that I care about and the people I love aren't getting me. So I had to be really clear of like, it's a bit of mentality of time management, but also like, okay, I choose to do this work for a living. And there is going to need to be some level of like going out and socializing, but it's one night this week. That's it. So how am I doing? How am I looking at things? How am I carving out that, I'm no longer doing the call at 5 a.m. with Dubai in the office. Right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Right. So sure, that's a requirement of the job, and that's okay because I get to work with other people across the world and learn great things about their culture and their way of doing business. But maybe I can do it with the screen off in my my jams and like do it later. So I think what's so funny is we, at least speaking for myself, we tell ourselves stories that I have to be in the office dressed and ready to do that kind of thing, where you really don't. Like, you're showing up and you're doing the job. So it's like, it's getting that level of clarity. I could do that call, and then I can do yoga, and then I can get in the shower. And if I come in an hour or two later, I've already been working. Like, it's, but there's never been a time in my life where someone's been like, Griffin, where were you? Right? But we tell ourselves these stories that we have to do things a certain way. So that type of clarity has been really helpful. And then the second thing is like the thoughts. It really comes back to, how do I want to train my brain to create the results that I want? So getting really certain in the thoughts that I want to be practicing regularly, the thoughts that I believe already, and affirming them. And when I don't have something like we just said, like, how do I find like a neutralization, or how do I wiggle off that? Or how do I go get coached? I mean, I have plenty of friends who have coached. I have my own coach. Like, for some people it might be therapy, depending on what they're working through. Some people it might be coaching, but it's so much better to not do this alone. Yes. So you go get the help, right? Like the impact of having a coach now, probably for 20 years in some capacity, different coaches, different groups, different times, like that level of getting certain so that you're able to shape your own thoughts, and you're not outsourcing your thinking to everybody else and being like, well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And then all of a sudden it's like your thought goes to the highest bidder. It's like, sure, check with a few people that are trusted confidants, but then what do I think? How do I want to go about this? And then the last thing is like, within confidence, is that so often we're so afraid to experience a crummy emotion. And emotions sometimes really are just like, it's just a neurochemical. It's just pulsating through my body. I can get through this. It sucks. I don't want to feel this way right now. But if I allow myself to feel it, I'm going to get through the other side, which means I can create confidence, because I know that I can experience anything. And even if it's uncomfortable or like, I don't want this experience, I know I can get through it. Because if I don't, what I've seen both in some of my own behaviors over the years and then what I see in clients, it leads to this like overconsumption. So we don't want to feel it. So we overwork, we over social media, we're binging on Netflix, food, alcohol, recreational drugs, because we just don't want to feel that thing. And it's like, you just keep letting yourself process it. Eventually, the way the brain works, it goes, yeah, this sucks and I don't want this, but I know how to get through it, going back to where it creates confidence. So those are the things that I've done. And again, I sort of bucketed them for myself into that sort of 3C. So I remember when I'm in the moment where my brain is being the toddler with the knife and like the jerk. Okay, what's happening right now? Oh, well, Jill, you haven't eaten well, you didn't exercise, and you haven't done thought work in 2 days because it's the weekend. No wonder you're off. Maybe you should do investigating what's floating around up there and start there before you decide any major decisions or what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's, again, goes back to such great awareness that, you've been able to harness to have such good impact on you. And it is okay to feel those emotions. And that's what they are, right? But they can also be the signals that we need to wake us up, right? So I want to thank you all again for being here. Happy New Year. Love to hear what your intentions are. And Jill, please stay in touch with us, and we'll see you again very soon.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Look, before I wrap, I wanted to tell you about a new program that I am launching in February of 2022. It is a group career coaching program. And I'm telling you this because it's going to help you get clarity on your next career moves. It's going to help you tell your unique career story or know how to fill in some of those gaps and blanks in your resume. It'll help you leverage your strengths and your natural talent and thinking about how to achieve goals and perform at a higher level to up-level your executive presence and your overall productivity. And if you're looking for support in this area, I'm going to put that link to get on the list for more information in the show notes. And I'd love to have you join the program. All right, friends, have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Career Refresh podcast. If you're enjoying this podcast and you want more career and mindset tips, get on my email list by going to jillgriffincoaching.com. I'll also put that link in the show notes. But before you go, please rate and review this podcast as it helps me get the word out to people everywhere so they can also thrive in the workplace. I'll see you next time. I'm Jill Griffin, your host of the Career Refresh podcast. My mission is to make workplaces more successful for everyone. So if you have ideas for topics or future guests, please email us at hello@jillgriffincoaching.com. Until next time, embrace possibility, be generous, intentional, and kind.